Mountain back to Atlantic Ocean. Upon me hills to Boakai. To educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah. Focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday. It's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs. Hey. In diaspora. Current affairs. Reliable information. History. Talking about culture. Politics. Education. Entertainment. Business. Sports. Advertisement. Articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition, we're going to be looking at what will a Boakai plan audit uncover and the Armed Forces Day celebration in Shambles. The president of Liberia today addressed the nation on the Armed Forces Day and the protests of the Armed Forces women or their wives. We're going to talk all that. Let me welcome for the first time on Focus on Liberia, Mr. James Tamba. Mr. Tamba is a finance guru, I call him. Mr. Tamba is right here with me in Atlanta. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be in the position of a rookie. So I have the opportunity to air as much as I can.
Thank you. Mr. Tamba, this is your first time. Well, I offer you a bottle of water to save feel at home and enjoy your stay.
Thank you.
Let me also welcome Mr. Elston Wisse. He called himself the sophomore. He's not a rookie here. Mr. Wisse, former or a journalist from Liberia. Mr. Wisse, welcome, sir.
My greatest pleasure always, Mr. John.
Let me also welcome the co-host on Point, Mr. Jimmy Eastman. There's a FOA analyst from the nation's capital.
I'm glad to be here, Dennis. Things are always being uncovered in our beloved nation, and we have to keep the people aware. So thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Let me also welcome our governance advisor, that's Mr. Adme Salif. Mr. Salif, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. Let's do it. It's a pleasure.
I want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is a special edition of Focus on Liberia we call Between the Headlines, and we're going to be discussing things that are going on in our country. Today, the president of Liberia, Mr. Joseph Numa Boakai, addressed the nation. Before we begin the show, I want to play you a clip from that national address.
My fellow citizens, on Sunday, February 11, I received an audience from wives of some members of the Armed Forces of Liberia who had come to express their concerns on several issues. These issues included poor living conditions, high tuition fees for their children, lack of adequate medical care, and low salaries, among others. The women stated their most important demand was the removal of retired General Prince C. Johnson as Minister of Defense. They said their husband had told them that unless General Johnson was removed, there would be no Armed Forces Day celebration. We made it clear to the women that the government will look into their grievances regarding all the issues, but that retired General Johnson had been confirmed by the Senate and appointed by me as Minister of Defense. We were hence not prepared to discuss this issue. Meanwhile, we received throughout the day and night information that some of the armed forces' wives and their husbands had initiated protest actions across the country by blocking major roadways and highways. Others had engaged in agitations in barracks around the country. In an effort to prevent violence and preserve lives and properties, we ordered the Armed Forces Day celebration for today be reduced to a low-key program. We have since held consultations with our strategic partner, the United States.
That was President Joseph Numa Boakai in his address. So today was Armed Forces Day. That was not held because of what happened. The women were protesting.
It's still playing, Dennis. I can hear you. I don't know if someone's side.
Okay, it's good now?
Yeah.
All right. So there was no Armed Forces Day, and also their demands were met. The defense minister, who was just confirmed, resigned. Let's start with that. Jimmy,
Yeah.
what's your initial reaction to the news that for the past 67 years or 66 years thereabout, we've had Armed Forces Day? This time there was none. The protest started with the women going to the Capitol building demanding that the defense minister designate not be confirmed. Well, he was confirmed. They kept on protesting. Nothing happened until the vice president was there to say what the issues are. They said roadblocks. In fact, today I saw that there was even protests and roadblocks in Bond County. Today, this happened. Why? Why is this happening?
Okay, I don't know. I hear some noise. Somebody's got some feedback somewhere, but let me go on. You know, Dennis, this thing should have been addressed earlier. You see, one thing about leadership, even in the military, you have to be part of the men you lead. You can't be looked as somebody who is like us against them. You are the command, and we're not part of you. The men that you lead have to believe that you are part of them. You are going through the same struggles, the same aspirations, and many of the same challenges they are facing. You are part of it. Well, it is clear through the voicing of these women that this general was they describe him as a power drunk, inhumane, incompassionate, corrupt, blood-sucking vampire. That immediately tells you he is not in consonance with his men. Okay? So he cannot lead them if he's going to lead them in such a manner that they feel that he doesn't empathize with them. He's not part of them. So they've been voicing out this rejection before, even during the confirmation trial, and nobody's been hearing them. And they've been adamant. One thing they're saying is that our men, because they're soldiers, they have to obey. They don't have voices. They were not going to kick against. They're not going to be mutinous and go against the dictates of the military code. So the women, have to speak out against them. They talk about the terrible conditions they're living in, and the conditions described were almost the same description I used to hear before 1980, where they had no good place to live, very low salaries, poor education. All of these things came to light, and still nobody heard them. So now that they finally perform roadblocks, and it's more far than what we talk about. We talk about the military barracks in Grand Jita, the military barracks in Bung, Tori military barracks, Lofa military barracks, Coast Guard. These guys, this was a coordinated, well-coordinated protest in several corners. So now, at the point we are, they made a statement, and that put a crack in the shell.
Thank you. Mr. Tama, there's noise in your background, so you can mute yourself when you are not speaking. Let me go to Eston. Yeah, Eston, this seemed to be coordinated. I mean, and what happened? Why is it that at this point, before we are hearing about this, right, before the president is coming up to say, taking a decision or acting, we've never seen anything like this before.
Right. Dennis, I like to tackle this by premising my initial take on the fact that things could have gone left and really fast too today, but thanks to the savviness and the wisdom of the president, Mr. Boakai, he was able to remediate the situation so that it didn't follow escalate. And here's why I premise it like that. You know, had he gone out to say, listen, we're going to forcibly have this program and we're going to we're going to move on the people that have themselves move out of the street. If now we have them removed, that could have gone anyway. It could have escalated to the extent that it could have caused our nation instability. But it doesn't negate the fact that I am with whoever agreed that the Liberian government should have handled this issue prior to today. We have to learn to resolve issue. We cannot sit and wait until the day, because these people have shown us signs of things prior to today that they were unhappy with this Prince Johnson, who happened to replace a former teammate of mine who played soccer together in Matadi, Daniel Zanga, as the Minister of Defense. It didn't meet the approval. Now you can slice it so many ways, because the people in the House also have a part to play, considering they saw how these people were resentful of his nomination, and then they cleared him at the House. So they have their hands full too. But the greater good today, in my estimation, is the fact that the president did what was expedient for this situation to be curbed and not further escalate beyond what happened.
Thank you. Mr. Tama, why do we have to reach at this point?
Well, first and foremost, what we don't do very well in our setting, an African setting, is that we don't prepare ourselves for what I call golden days, our employees in all sectors. I don't know what the pension scheme is for the military, but I think if that was done properly, we would not have gone through all of this. I don't think the AFL has a very good pension scheme. I don't see why the women have to take matter in their hands before the government can act. So that's where the problem started. Now, with respect to the action taken by the sitting government or the present government, I think to age is wisdom. Boakai is the seasoned guy. Let me first of all say that in the interest of full disclosure, I have a relationship with him, but the words expressed here that I would say are totally that of mine. I'm not a member of the unit party per se. I am an independent guy. But I think they did a very good job in helping to curb the situation. Like my previous colleague said, it would have gone the other way around. But they did a very good job. Maturity counts.
Thank you. Mr. Nambe, Victor, well, the women took matters in their own hand. To me, it appeared like lawlessness, sitting on the street and block traffic, and absolutely there was nobody to say, stop this. We didn't see the police, we didn't see anyone coming and getting them off the road so that there could be free passage, right? There should be designated areas for protest. Why they have the right to assemble, but not to infringe on the rights of others. Why was it that law enforcement, nobody did anything? Was it some form of acquiescence?
I mean, that's a very good question, Dennis. That first of all, how you guys doing? I regretted the late entrance. I had something else going on, but that is the question that I think only the law enforcement people will answer. But I read the president's statement. I think they knew this was coming. He met with the protesters, and they had expressed to him what they intended to do, and yet I don't think anything was done to foster what happened today. Also, I think this is a colossal failure of the vetting process. I mean, these people have taken forever to form this government, and yet they're not getting it right. From what I'm hearing, this guy was notorious, and apparently the descent in the ministry, in the rank and file of the AFL, was palpable. They must have gotten wind of this. They must have sniffed it out one way or the other, and yet he was nominated. And then it is also a colossal failure on the part of our confirmation process. This unanimous confirmation that seems to be the order of the day in the Senate is a shame. I think all of these things, I believe the signs were there. And yet the nomination went ahead. Now, this is part of what we were complaining about. This president seems to be hell-bent on doing what pleases him and not necessarily what is right. I mean, the internal affairs minister is another case in point. I won't be surprised if protesters come in the street to protest his confirmation hearing. So I am baffled by all this. This is really unnecessary, and how this is happening really confounds everybody. So this perceived wisdom, this wisdom that is being ascribed to this team, I think the judgment is out. I think the wisdom is not there. I think they just, they're a group of people who are just going, by trial by error. You try this, if it doesn't work, then you come back. And it is disappointing and sad, because
Thank you.
This is the group that we all trusted could do better, and yet we're not seeing it. I'm very disappointed.
Thank you. Mr. Salif, you look at governance in a way that a lot of people would not. The military women, the protest from military women or their ex-wife or their widow is nothing new. I remember during the interim presidency of Dr. Sawyer, it happened. When President Ellen came, I remember I still read that video. You say, I know that Christmas you're one, and they end up cheering for her. When President Weah came along, that was where Finda Bono got her name from as rescue mother. And we've had this kind of crisis all the time, but it was solved. What happened this time? They have to come to a point of canceling Armed Forces Day and also bringing down the defense minister that the country has invested so much in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to start with the defense minister you talk about. The person Mr. Eastman described. I taught Prince Johnson for 3 years. I had the opportunity to teach at a graduate school at the University of Liberia, Kofi Annan Institute for Conflict Transformation. I taught a course that became very popular in the security community, where we have some ECOWAS military observers, some UN folks will come to that class, because I will also bring military attaché from the U.S. Embassy and other places, called Defense and Security and Peace Building. And, that's where I met General Prince Johnson. At that time, I think he was deputy or something. He hadn't ascended to the office of Chief of Staff yet, but shortly thereafter, he became Chief of Staff. He didn't come across to me as somebody who was corrupt, somebody who may be indisciplined, because it's an indisciplined military person who will be corrupt, who will do all the things that I'm hearing out there. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this is a trained military officers, you said, Dennis, the U.S. government and our in the U.S. Defense assistance, defense and security assistance to Liberia, and the Michigan National Guard. There are other military ventures that the United States government and other partners have extended to Liberia. And whether they brought their officers to train hours in Liberia or brought some of our officers to the U.S. and educated them. Prince Johnson is one of those who best benefited from that. He has extensive training. It's not just some post-war soldier kind of situation. So he never come across as an indisciplined individual to me. I'm not here to defend him. I've not spoken to him other than sending a congratulatory text when he got confirmed. I've not talked to him for years. Okay. How did it get to this? Why did this happen? I'm glad you prefaced your question to me by stating that this issue has been around. This issue predates Prince Johnson, President Boakai, President Sirleaf, back to President Amos Sawyer back then, interim government time. If it's not military widows, it will be the wives. So that tells you there are legitimate issues with the military itself in terms of what kind of army we've built over the years, how we've utilized our armed forces over the years, and what kind of facilities, what kind of investment has the state invested in the armed forces of Liberia. There are challenges there. As I said, they've received a lot of assistance, international assistance, but still there are issues. And just like there are issues in the rest of the society, so too we're seeing these socio-economic issues manifest from time to time. Historically, you will agree with me, our military has never really been paid well, just like our teachers, just like our nurses. They've never been paid well. This is a military that has a history in yesteryears, before 1980, that was by and large used as people use them security, private security, or to protect their families and things like that. Fast forward, the coup happened and so on. We all know the rest of the story. So I'm not here to be an apologist, but I'm here to say that if we need a military like other countries do in the region, then we have to invest in developing a security sector. And this is not just the armed forces alone. We talk about the police on this show many times. We've talked about, you barely know anything about the Coast Guard, or other service groups of our security sector. So it's a major issue area in terms of generally our security sector. But coming back and wrapping up with the governance question you're asking, look, there could have been a number of ways. We can sit here and look at hindsight and say, well, maybe the Senate should have perhaps suspended the confirmation hearing of General Johnson at that time to investigate further, or perhaps the president or his advisor, if his advisors around him could have said, oh, Mr. President, let's appease these women somewhat, investigate the matter, really resolve it before today came about. Who knows if they did some of the, you heard the president's speech, though, that the women went to him, they expressed this concern, and the government promised they will look into the matter and will investigate. Yet, the women came out the way they did in such a coordinated, phenomenal way that, some of the descriptions that we heard and saw, this wasn't just some willy-nilly group of women who were blocking the roadway to the airport. This thing was like a mutiny. To me, that speaks to a larger issue than just the socio-economic conditions with the women. This is a security lapse. This tells you how fragile the country still is, how fragile even Monrovia is, because they blocked every major thoroughfare. So if that were a different situation, we could have been talking about a different issue here, Dennis.
Mr. Tamba, President Boakai was elected on the mantra of experience. The wise old man, 40 years experience and all that. How come from Sawyer to Weah they solved the problem and he couldn't?
I don't know what do you mean he couldn't. I mean, give the man a break, 2 weeks. First and foremost, I don't think they have visited the pension scheme for the public sector in Liberia. I don't think they have even touched that yet. So how could you? And then with respect to vetting, I think this guy was vetted properly. I mean, my previous colleague said that the women should have taken another route. They were, I don't want to call them lawless, but they have the right to demonstrate. That's fundamental.
But not to block the way.
Yes. I don't know what the law says in Liberia with respect to application of permits and how permits are granted, who monitor them, whether the security forces monitor the permits that are granted to people who want to demonstrate. I don't know to what extent that was done, but I can say that this is not something that started today, so you can't blame Boakai for it. I mean, we always underpay these people. We know that, and what do you expect from their wives? The husbands are not getting their pension. The current ones are not getting paid properly. Of course, they will demonstrate. They have the right to do so. I mean, it's unfortunate that they did not follow the proper channel with respect to location and so forth, but it is still their right to demonstrate. That is, even here, people are appointed and people demonstrate their appointment. So it's not new. So again, you cannot fault Boakai for this. Let's give him a couple of weeks more and see what happens, how he will handle something of this nature. What I would like to say though is this is very serious. Serious because when you are in an infancy like this government is, you have to be very, very, very careful when it comes to security, because one of the key elements for investment is assurance of security to the investors. If the investors see that your country is not properly secure, it doesn't have an atmosphere of pure security, you will drive the investors away. I hope they are thinking about that. So I do think that the women were right, and that I'm glad that the president has set up a committee to look into it and resolve the matter once and for all. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Dennis, can I just quickly?
I will come to you. Let me go to Eston first, and you can come. Mr. Wisse, so I agree that previous administration kicked the can down the road, right? But this was coming, and President Boakai, do you believe? I said earlier. I said, well, other presidents solved it, it didn't. But I agree with there's people say no, it was not solved, it was just kicked down the road. Why didn't President Boakai anticipate this and act and be proactive?
Dennis, there's no secret that I'm a huge proponent of change, and more so the change of the past government. We were the one that literally brought George Weah government down because his level of ineptitude. But I remain a very objective Liberian, and I've said repeatedly that I will be very upfront when these issues arise. I think if for lack of a better word, they mismanaged and misjudged this issue that will have unfolded on today, a very, very, very important day in our nation's history that has been celebrated by all men prior, which did not unfold today. But the greater good of this was the fact that it did not further escalate, which could have been the case. But having said that, yes, this should have been addressed, and this speaks to the fact that we tend to let things slide. When you see things not going the right way or going appropriately, you should tackle it and find a remedy. Because, like for instance, the previous government, like you and I, we spoke about this already. Finaway, bring those people to to her comfort zone and like talk to them, solve it. If it was something like the University of Liberia students, former Mr. Wilson Tappet, and who went to the UL, they will bring the boys, have a rapport with them, and they solve it. But yes, you cannot leave things undone. We said this government are going to do things differently. That's one of the paramount reasons some of us stood by this government and stood to bring this government into power, because we felt the government that was there, our predecessor, they underperformed greatly. So yes, Dennis, you are right. We have to address things and nip it in the bud when the need arises.
Mr. Nambe, I see this as it was a total breakdown of law and order, because if people are setting roadblocks all over the country and there is no security to remove them, that's some people even going to the extent of calling it a mutiny, right? So why should we have a sitting government and then you have people who set up their own roadblocks? People are not moving for 3 days. The vice president went there and said, hey, according to the ladies, give them 24 hours. Those 24 hours elapsed and the vice president was not even in the country.
Right. So yeah. First of all, I do not support disorderly behavior. I think the people have the right to protest their government, but I don't think we should make a mistake to say, protest is not the same as disorderly behavior and blocking this, roadblocks and all of that. But notwithstanding, I read the president's statement. I don't know if they did, but there is nowhere in the statement that he mentioned ever meeting with the aggrieved soldiers. Yes, the wives came and he met with the wives, but the wives are just the proxies for the soldiers themselves. As has been stated here already, this is a problem that has been in existence from several governments before this government. I'm not saying, meet with them and beg them, but meet with them and find a way. I was on this network, I think, a couple of days ago, and I was telling people, we need to give them the space to settle in, and I still maintain that. But notwithstanding, there's some basic things that I think they should do that they can't do. I think they could have met with these people and found a way to neutralize the situation. I am not sure if much attention was given to this. They knew this was coming, and they failed to address it. I think they had hoped that it was going to go away on its own, and here we are today. So I still maintain that the vetting also, I think, was flawed, because if the vetting was done properly, I think they would have picked this up along the way. And unfortunately, the confirmation did not pick that up along the way as well. So here we are. But, to say the president was wise, no, they're dealing with there is always a cause and an effect. Right now, they're addressing the effect, putting the ban in, because this problem is not going to go away. They have to find a way to deal with it. But I think postponing the celebration and all of that, is that really being wise? I don't know. A wise thing would have been meeting with these people, I believe, sitting with them and understanding what it is that is paining them, and putting forth a resolution, a roadmap that will, quell the discontent and assure these people that indeed you mean well and you intend to address it. I'm sure if this were done, these people wouldn't have gone in the street. But I don't think their grievances were ever addressed directly. I don't think so.
Thank you, Mr. Salim. Does this incentivize? I don't want to be mean to the women, but does it incentivize lawlessness? Because you can block row and say, let Minister Salif come down, unless this is done. And then we have given them, the trump card to do that.
No.
Would there be some copycat incidents around the country?
It's possible, but I think we have to stop and really pause and take a closer look at what happened in a coordinated way that it happened. I think there's more than meets the eye. I do not have any evidence. No one's told me anything. Yeah, but the singular issue, even the president stated there were other issues that they put their grievances forward, but the singular issue for this coordinated agitation, if we can call it that, is that the defense minister should step down.
Yeah,
that was the demand. All other issues were secondary. to be asked why the defense ministry should step down. So he was the chief of staff, and these things happen. He should step down. You know, I hope to be wrong down the line, but I think there's more to this than meets the eye. It could be from any angle, and we have to pay attention to that, because the coordinated fashion of the way it happened across the country, around Monrovia, strategic thoroughfare, and how the women went about doing this. Look, someone texted me and said the resident representative for the FAO, or one of the major multilateral bodies, had to get on Keke to manage to get to the airport because the president was trying to catch a flight to an emergency meeting in Accra somewhere. Those kinds of things. Senator Amara Connor was posting how he was having trouble getting from Todman Burr, and people. So it just told you that the country was locked down, the city was locked down. There's more to it. And in terms of what I will see, we'll see a ripple effect, and we'll see sort of it would incentivize others to say, well, we can do similarly, because we see how the women were successful. Their singular demand was met. The government caved in, the defense minister resigned. I said no, because if there is a structure, it's a country of rule of law. Yes, on the one hand, citizens have the right to peacefully assemble and petition their government. There is a structure, there's a procedure, that the ways that this happens. Whether the police grant you permit, police know where you will be, how you peacefully assemble. But this wasn't necessarily a peaceful assembly. It wasn't a peaceful assembly. So for another group trying to photocopy this and replicate it, I hope not. I hope they can, petition peacefully and put their grievances in a peaceful way. But I think the government, if it's a proactive government, will learn from this and then plan accordingly. Because when you look at the National Security Council, how the national security structure is set up around the president, it involves multiple layers, multiple ministries, multiple agencies across the country, and specifically around the presidency. We're talking about Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health. All these have different roles in the National Security Council. And then some of the names, the agencies you even know, these are, yes, they play a role. But at a government level, there are ministerial levels and different layers that come together to really inform the National Security Council decisions. So if you were talking to somebody in any of these bodies, you start thinking scenario planning to ensure that this does not repeat itself. And now with the women, neither with any other sector of the security. Now, my point here is not to negate anything or to play down the grievances.
Mr. Let me interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, but what I'm hearing you were saying, let me paraphrase you by saying this is more than meets the eye. In other words, big hands behind it, and you use the word mutiny. That's the word that you use.
Yes.
Right? And it was coordinated, it was throughout the country.
Of course.
Why?
I mean, it could be any number. Look, Dennis, if you look, in grad school, I did a course on national security and defense. And that's why I was teaching that national security defense course, right? In that they tell you, when you see any situation like this, you ought to stop to do an assessment. Right. What is the security assessment? What are the security implications? Well, was it just an inconvenient event, inconvenient people's free movement around the country? That's not what that happened. That's just a matter of fact. But I'm speaking more than that. You're speaking in terms of the stability of the government, in terms of other ulterior motives that may have supported in some way to coordinate, transport people to some end, which we do not even know yet. So these are the areas of investigations. These are the areas where assessment ought to happen so that we get to the root causes of this. The women may have legitimate grievances, and they do. I started earlier by saying, this goes way back. And so, yes, there are issues. However, what happened today meets, there's more to it than meets the eye.
Thank you.
Are we going to assume that as well coordinated as this thing was?
Hold on, Victor. let's take turns here. Let me go to Jimmy. Jimmy, the president took a series of decisions or actions were taken, right? Number one, calling off the celebration of Armed Forces Day. Number two, the stepping down or the resignation of the defense minister. And then number three is they will investigate. And the investigation, from what I learned from what he was saying, is investigate those conditions that the women are complaining about, and not the kind of investigation Mr. Salib is alluding to. So that is, investigate why this. I mean, because this is so coordinated, could it be? And let me also remind you that the top military man in the country, who everybody afraid of, who always beat the drums of war, Prince Johnson. He just delivered a sermon that, and I'm not trying to speculate here, he delivered a sermon that the president no longer accepts his call. And these things are happening. Jimmy, the actions the president took, to what extent do these actions address the problem? Or are we kicking again?
Well, it appears that just like you said, the removal or the rejection of the minister designate was one of the key items on their list. It's as if he is the face of the problem, that the immediate problem. But what we also know is that there was a failure in alerting the president of the situation. Such a coordinated event in several different locations. Why wasn't the security apparatus aware of this prior to it happening? So definitely there's a failure there. And I will give them a little bit of an excuse
Maybe,
now, because
maybe we
they're
don't have
still
a justice
setting up the
minister
government.
yet. That's why.
Yeah, they don't.
The
Exactly. So they're still setting up. But there was a failure here. They should have known. Such a coordinated effort. Can you imagine if it was something else that was being planned and you're not even aware of it? No. There was a security failure here. But so taking the defense minister's resignation is good. But what needs to happen? They need to tighten up the security mechanism. They need to know
is that
about
a
these
solution?
people. Yeah, I mean, it is part of it, because it appears that he has been having problems with the people. If the people have already designated
How
him.
do they know that? Somebody come and say, "Hey, I have problem with you. You did this," and boom, you fire. I mean, what were the investigations done to really ascertain that the women were saying the truth? And right there, firing the defense minister, or the defense minister resigning, how does it address the problem? Or just put a temporary band-aid on this issue?
Sometimes, for instance, when you see students get up and they tell you, say they don't like a condition, you will say you investigate it, but there's the students who will tell you about their situation. We have to give them benefit of the doubt here, that something is aggrieved. And that is why they're going this far. They said this before, while they were confirming him. They've been on this matter, not just today. It's been a sticking matter, and they've been persistent. So we have to give them the benefit of the doubt before we even talk about investigating, because as you can see, it has already manifested in a complete disruption of the nation's capital and elsewhere. So we have to give them the benefit of doubt. There's something wrong. So removing at least part of that may be a temporary solution, but while you investigate it further, and definitely there's a security lapse somewhere. They should have known this thing was going to go on today.
Abu, let me welcome Mr. Abu Boakai Dukle joining us from Canada. Hold on, let me bring Abu in, and then it will be Victor, and then you, Legend. Abu, no Armed Forces Day. Our defense minister resigned, a trained military leader, and he retired. So it's like, I don't know what they're going to do with him now. So failure, this was, as the president as he rewarded lawlessness and disorder.
To a certain extent, you can speculate and say that. But I just wanted to pick up on a point Brother Ahmed just made earlier. Uh, Even though some of the things he said were mostly based on theory, but taking the fragility of our country together with all the things that have transpired to this point today, it's only logical to think that there is more to it than what we saw today. Because when you look at the nature of coordination that we saw yesterday, was it yesterday or today rather, sorry, Monday there. So, you know, the fact that the president can even um, entertain the resignation of his just recently appointed minister of defense, and in the past we've seen that most of these demonstrations, confronting the president, confronting whoever they are demonstrating against, was mostly contained within Monrovia. And I remember one time when I think it was something similar to this same demand where uh, wives of the ex-soldiers confronted Madam President at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And Madam President came down and said to them, I want you guys to organize and appoint people that will speak on your behalf in a coordinated fashion so that your grievances can be presented to me in a more, civilized manner, so that it doesn't have to be like this. And they accepted. The one among themselves, they picked someone who was speaking on their behalf. Now, besides the security lapses that we saw that occurred today, one troubling aspect of this is the fact that the president even considered the resignation of the defense minister. Now, the thing is, monkey see, monkey do. Now, for our country and the way we are fragile, despite all these elections being held, one party loses, the other party wins. Despite all of that, the underlying concern that we've had since the cessation of hostility, those concerns are still there, as much as we try to suppress them, but they are still there. So, for someone who is considered to be the kingmaker of our political structure, says that the president doesn't take my call. Do we even imagine the next step he might result to if his concern or if he's not being accorded what he's asking for? So I'm totally in agreement with Brother Ahmed when he says this is more than what we saw today. Actually,
Victor, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, I'm just listening to my colleagues. I don't know what is worse: the fact that they didn't see this coming, or the fact that they saw it coming and were unable to do anything about it. Look, we were here, I think a weekend or two ago. We saw the president's security barrier being broken. Somebody went and choked the president while he was at AMU University. Isn't that a lot of insecurity? The president, in his statement, informed us that there are reports that there are some AFL soldiers who were undeservedly reinstated. Isn't that a breakdown in the security around him? And yet, we don't want to tell him that his vetting and the nomination process is flawed. I don't know why we're dancing around this. We can find all of the euphemistic expression we want to get. This is a failure, and this president is the president of this government. This is a failure at their feet. They are not doing their job like they're supposed to do. It's just as simple. They knew this thing was brewing. With this kind of coordinated effort to organize this and block so many vital entry and exit points, they must have known it was coming. But what did they do about it? They should tell us. So they're going to do an investigation and start a committee, which might report to us, 6 months down the road? Yeah, they've been in office 20 days, but that's long enough for them to get up and get this thing going. And it is slipping away from them. And I'm just really confused as to what is happening. But I refuse to believe that, they didn't know this was coming. They were unable to deal with it, or they didn't know how to deal with it. But this is something that they knew was in the making. We've all acknowledged that this has been existing since 2, 3 governments ago. They
That's
knew
right.
this problem. This problem has been on the table. But what did they come prepared to do about it? They are the government now. What are they going to do about it? And unfortunately, I have absolutely no doubt that there will be some copycats that will follow suit with what these people did today. I think it's going to happen again. Unfortunately.
Legend, your 1 minute for you to chime in,
Yes,
Victor.
well, I was just going to just throw in that they should serve as a caveat for this government to speed up. I know they want to tread cautiously with who they were oppositions to in terms of filling up, but meaningful ministries and agencies need to be occupied so that you can hold people accountable when these things happen. You don't have national security, and you don't have all of your key ministries occupied with ministers, proper and deputy. So who can you hold accountable when certain things happen? So it's my ardent hope that we don't see this, but yes, there's doubts in the mind of many Liberians now because several platforms I've seen people rating that there might be a repercussion of what happened today, but we want to see that deterred. And how can that be deterred when you have the various ministries and agencies occupied so that when these things happen, they can coordinate and have a remedy to them. We don't need this to persist. We need to bring things under control, and this government needs to speed up a little more. Imagine you talking about living up to certain expectation in your first 100 days. My brother, you are past 15 days. That's a lot closer to anything you can think about. Before you look, time flies. Time flies. We are more than half of a month. So we have to speed things up because the greater good here is we said we're going to do better than our predecessor. We cannot underperform. We must perform adequately so that the Liberian people can be impressed by this government that said it came to rescue. The word rescue is a strong word, so we must perform to it.
Thank you. Victor, Sam Waller is challenging you so the president was not choked. But I know you intentionally exaggerated to make a point, so that's how I understood it. Mr. Salih.
I'm talking about the guy who broke the barrier.
I know. That's why I say
during the graduation. Okay.
I'm an author, so I understand exaggeration to make a point.
Okay.
Mr.
Salih, also don't forget.
My boss used to say, I need one neck. I need one neck to choke.
Yeah.
Right.
During president, we asked a presidency. Someone also intruded into his private space. I think
how is that relevant?
This thing happen all the time. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Because
Mr.
making it sound as though it has not happened in the past. It even happened to, I think it was the president of France. Yes. Somebody got to him. I'm just saying. Yep.
We get it. People used to say that, oh, it happened Ellen time. That argument. But Mr. Salivia, if the president needs one neck to choke, whose neck is that going to be? Because you see, as they go back, as they move, take a step back to do a thorough investigation, you will want to know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's go to the airplane analogy. This is take off time. You don't have, you don't have all the control, right? Like you said, you don't have a justice minister, you don't have a national security minister. There are certain government officials who should be confirmed in place, keeping their eyes on the balls and and juggling different things.
On the day of inauguration, those people should be working.
Yes, those people should be working. You should have those who are subject to confirmation. Some say, look, you've been running to be president since 2017. And so you should have really hired government structures, multiple scenarios of who will serve where. And however, when you're finishing a political campaign, that's not kind of how it works, because you need all kinds of alliances to get you across the finish line, and therefore there are obligations to meet. You're juggling to see who's qualified to serve where, all these names you're recommending to me. I'm trying to constitute a government and things like that. Granted, all of that. Look, heads will roll. I imagine. A head has already rolled, right? I mean, the defense minister offered his resignation, and I really admire that. I have to tell you why. In our society, that doesn't happen easily. Despicable things will be happening under somebody's watch. Someone will fail. Someone will not be doing their job, and they will not have the decency to step down or take responsibility. He said, look, in his resignation letter, he stated that he was stepping down in the interest of peace, to ensure that the stability of the country is a paramount thing. No one individual is higher and greater than and above the peace and stability of the country. I admire that. He's still relatively a young man. Like you all said, he's gotten all this training, all this military education, security training, and then they retire him, they elevate him to a civilian control of the military, essentially as Minister of Defense. Now is resigned so abruptly. What is going to happen? There are other, prominent people who should be looking at this. Advising, we have the national security advisor, my own big brother, Samuel Kofi Woods, very smart man. Who there are other people who are in decision making advisory roles around the president, at the cabinet level, in an advisory level, and in the different layers of the Security Council. These are people you'll be looking at. Even the police, because earlier we began with the rule of law, and the walking the fine line between rights, citizenship, rights, obligations, and responsibilities, to somebody becoming lawless. What happens there? I didn't see the police. I didn't see police trying to control to ensure that they didn't block this thoroughfare. Now none of that happened. What happened? Was this police failure, general security failure? Did someone hear something? Was somebody afraid that something would have happened to them and therefore they stay away, they acquiesce? There are all kinds of unanswered questions, Dennis. But we do not have enough necks yet on the chopping board to say this is the neck you will chop. Your choke, so to speak. It's not a good analogy because it's a violent one, but I think that you don't have everybody in place yet to begin to blame.
Well, brother Ahmad, if I may just interject a minute here, I don't think you need specific heads to roll here. The entire security apparatus just failed miserably.
I agree. I stated that this is a
where is the police? The police
Exactly.
director or inspector
It's been
general?
confirmed, Mr.
He went with the vice president in a suit to go and talk to the women. They gave them 24 hours, and that was it. He was on the plane to somewhere else.
Let me put this salt in this soup, if you let me, John. Especially about you asked a very particular question. Where were the police? The worst thing they could have done for the police to get involved with these soldier men, let me put it in the Liberian way, with soldier women wives. We've had a history where the police and the soldier were at each other, and that was during 1979. And that since then they have come together. But had they gotten involved and had they taken a drastic action against those soldier people wives, they would have had a problem with the soldiers in the future. So that was why. But let me add a little more seasoning to the food here. Prince Johnson was the same one. I'm talking about the general now. He was the same one during August or July that he said he was approached to take the reins, almost like to have a coup d'etat at some time, and he never divulged. He only told that he had been approached, but he never divulged the name of those persons who approached him. And it just went like that. Maybe certain people in government did inquire of him to find out who were the persons involved in trying to get him to
what President Weah said.
Exactly, and he never did. So what there may be a little truth to what you say. There's something, it may be in the brewing in the background, because we know we got a new chief of staff. Who were those people that were getting him to do it and he refused to do it? Maybe they're trying to find a good way to get rid of him, because this was coordinated. And so there was definitely some degree of involvement in some military brass in this whole operation.
But if I may push back a little bit on what Jimmy is saying, I mean, this is the same Prince Johnson we all remember. He was invited to some meeting, something they wanted him to do. I think put some people out in the streets when the election results were being announced. And it was the same Prince Johnson who refused to go to that meeting. So,
Declined, I agree.
yes. So it's a little difficult, but I think he's been walking middle of the road. But the point that I think everybody is making is the way this thing was dealt with. It just seems to me like it wasn't given the seriousness that it deserved. You just mentioned the police director, right? He gave an ultimatum, and then he climbs on the plane. He's out of the country, right? So who is? I mean, yes, of course, he has deputies and all of that, but it's symbolic. You have a crisis brewing here, and you're on a plane to another country.
I was talking about the vice president. I'm not sure if the police director also left.
Okay, then I take it back, because again, Mr. Wallace said as soon as the president was choked. So apparently tonight is my night to misspeak. So I take it back.
Mr. Tamba, where do we go from here? Because we see most of the time when these things happen, they say we're going to set up a group to investigate, and sometimes that's the end.
Yeah.
What do you think President Boakai is doing from here? And also, let me add, remember he has a 100-day deliverable that's being released, and no car stock anymore for 100 days. Now other things are jumping in.
First and foremost, he has to appoint somebody of high caliber to replace.
Can you give us a little volume, or is it me?
Question.
Mr. Tama, can you speak a little louder, or is it just me?
Yes, first and foremost, he has to appoint somebody of high caliber to replace Mr. Johnson. That's the first thing he needs to do. And then secondly, the committee he set up must be totally independent, because if it is not independent, the result of their deliberation could be viewed as being tainted, in my view. So they should be totally independent, and it should be a representation of what Liberia is, cross-section of the Liberian population, in my view. That is a way forward. And of course, he can revisit with the different security apparatus and see where mistakes were made, what should have been done to curb the situation as it turned out to be. Those are the three areas, in my view, that the president should be looking into.
Mr. Dukley, do you have faith that this issue will be addressed once and for all?
Actually, yes, because this it goes right to the core of what makes Joseph Boakai the president of our republic. Because now Jimmy raised a very, very poignant question here. Even though people might have, they might have overlooked it then, maybe now it's about time that they look into it. If there was more to it than what he said, and who were the players, who were those people that approached him, etc. So again, it comes back to what Brother Ahmed said. Maybe there's a lot more to it than what happened. So I think Joseph Boakai has no choice but to make sure that he got to the bottom of this, because his presidency is going to be on the line, believe it or not, because now and then the actual plan will come into play. Who knows? I mean, I'm just speculating here. I don't know. I don't have any hard facts to support what I'm saying, but I'm just speculating that maybe there might be more to it than we've seen. So that makes it even more urgent that the president get to the bottom of this particular event that occurred today.
Legend, and the Senate, you think the Senate that has been confirming, almost like a pass-through, right? What will be the Senate role or going forward? Because we have another controversial nominee who was, who they had a hearing for humanly, the Internal Affairs Minister, right? So what should the Senate learn from this? Because in fact they said, well, we put this on hold so we can look into it. I don't know where they look. Did they even look?
So that's one of my displeasure about how this entire thing unfolded. They saw the wives and the widows of current and deceased armed forces of Liberia at their building during this confirmation hearing. That should have signaled to them something out of being firm. Ask this man the question that addresses the plight of our people. Do a thorough investigation. I was even taken aback the way they handle the whole Sarah Yanti incident, because the people kept telling them, and you could tell from the very live feed that people wanted them to ask the hard question, and we all know what that is, or credential. So the people show you what they want you to focus on. If you fail to heed to their cries, that will bring you into disrepute, that will expose you. A similar thing happened to the previous administration. The people showed the government those who were not functioning adequately or those who were overstepping their function and the office that they occupied, and they failed to adhere to the people's cry and calls for which they were put out when they were opting for a second go around or a second term. So it's not hard to tell, but it's hard to tackle. So when you see the people's concern, kindly address it. You are in the employ of the people, the government, the president, the senators. You are there because the people confide in you, they believe in you, they trust you. That's why you are the direct representative. Everybody could go there. These counties, they have several competent, educated, intelligent people, but everyone cannot go. So they deem it necessary and send you. You have to be a reflection of them. These guys have to do better job going forward, because this incident, it just exposed them greatly. And that's my take on this.
My last question, I want each of you to take 30 seconds each so we can address our next topic is, how does President Boakai and his administration come out of this crisis looking like? Strong, weak, compromise, whatever. Victor.
I'm hard pressed to not say they're coming out weak, but if you look closely, the telltale signs were there. You knew they were there. There were complaints coming out of the Ministry of National Defense. This current minister was the chief of staff. You knew complaints were there. You knew there were AFL soldiers who did not deserve to be reinstated because of misbehavior. So you knew all of this, and yet you appointed this guy. I hear my brother saying, the Senate should do it. Yeah, the Senate should do it. But what about the appointing power? What is the responsibility of the appointing power? You can't just leave it with the Senate.
So quickly, how does the government look now? The administration?
I think they look weak coming out of this. They look weak.
Mr. Tamba, how do they look? Oh, sorry.
In the interest of what I call infancy as relates to governance, they are in their infancy stage. And as such, I will say that we'll give them a pass at this time and hope for the better, and recommend that swift action be taken to curb a situation of this nature in the future.
So do they come out looking better?
Having said that, I would say a learning curve.
Mr. Saleh.
Not too bad. It's a learning curve.
Is the administration looking bruised?
I'm not focusing on the optics. The optics not good. I'm not focusing. What I'm focusing on is the national intelligence estimate, national intelligence assessment that ought to be made across the system. because this is a vulnerable period. This is a takeoff, moment of this aircraft. You're still forming. You're taking off. You're building as you're flying, and some pieces start to fall off. It exposes you, and people know this. Look, I'm not here to be a doomsayer to try to suggest something ominous is big as I miss here, but your presidency, you're sending the message that we are competent people. We're better and different than what you had before. We are going to move this country in a better direction with players who have experience, who have training in the areas that we've assigned them. And therefore, what happened today, we know it has happened already, but here are the steps. Here's how we can assure you that the country remains stable, the peace remains in place, and you ought to demonstrate to citizens and to the international community that the country is safe and the government is solid, and you all know what you're doing. You're moving forward. That's kind of what these are the kinds of things I'll be looking for. If I have indicators that they're moving in that direction, I'll have a better degree of confidence that things will be stable. Because right now, you can't say they're bruised, they're not bruised just because they cancel one event today.
Mr. Wise.
Yes, sir. Considering, I'm going to say this, considering it could have gone worse, and the way they were able to have this situation not solved, but found an amicable solution just to quell the whole thing that it didn't further escalate to violence, more so to endanger the lives.
How is that a solution?
I would say, considering the approach of the president to not go on with the program, we have been seen as dismissive of the wives and widows of the armed forces of Liberia women. I would say they came up fairly well. And in the word of senior Mr. Tamba, I want to tend to agree with him. Considering we are in the infant stage of this government, I will give them a slack, but we hope for better. We cannot continue to tread on a slow leg. We have to hit the ground running.
Mr. Wisa, you think the wives and the soldiers share your sentiment? You think they think this was amicably resolved? You think that's how they feel?
Not necessarily, but considering the magnitude of it and how the president responded to it, let's put in a hypothetical scenario. If the president had forcibly gone on to have the program and send police or other militia, what have you, or EPS, whatever the case may be, and say have them, they either move or have them removed from the street, it could have gone far worse. Considering that, that's why I'm saying we will give it a slack, like Mr. James Tamba alluded to what I just said earlier. He said the stage of the government is still very young, so we give them a slack in my brief view.
Jimmy, it's 3 weeks now. What does this tell us where President Boakai is headed?
Well, if Vice President Kuhn hasn't woken up yet, then he better wake up. It is obvious that the presidency is going to depend on Kuhn to back it up, because the limitation of President Boakai will make Kuhn very instrumental in anything that goes on in this administration.
What do you mean limitation?
He, of course, we know he's of advanced age. We know he has health issues. We saw what happened in the inaugural address. We know there are these issues, and we'll be fooled to not admit it. As the saying goes, never laugh at a live dragon. When you see this thing happening, you know it's there already. So you have to take your necessary precaution. So Vice President Kuhn has to be ready to step in immediately. This sort of concern, just like to say he left the country, but when that thing is something like that is boiling up, President Kuhn needs to take the reins immediately and address it. That's the only way I see it happening. If we don't see this, then you will definitely see a weakness in the administration.
Mr. Dukley, you have the last on this one.
Yeah, I think it's about time that we enforce our laws as they were intended to be. Just because they're newly inaugurated into office doesn't mean uh, this hand-off approach, because if somebody is breaking the law, they must be dealt with. I mean, that's not an excuse. That's not an acceptable excuse. I get it. You don't want to be heavy-handed. Yes, I get that. But if anyone who is breaking the law, they should be dealt with. So this is not going to fare well for President Boakai, especially when so much has been expected from him. You know, with the rescue slogan and this idea of being experienced, political experience. I mean, where is all of that? I mean, it's been 20 days. So really, this one is really only going to add to all the skeptics out there to say, you know what, uh, I think the CEC government is better than this, and that doesn't really bode well for President Boakai and the Unity Party.
Here we go with the comparison. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the Armed Forces Day in Shambles today. I want us to bring in colors. So there is the one on the audit. We're just going to have one pass because I want us to be more financial and thorough. But audit, President Boakai has announced that he's going to audit the GAC to audit, starting with 3 agencies or institutions. That's the EPS, that's the people that protect the president and his family, Executive Protection Services. You have the NSA, the National Security Agency, and then you have the Central Bank of Liberia. So when I was researching on this, because it is like, what would the audit that he's planning to carry out, what would that audit uncover? Okay, this is the GAC, so we know that audit should be routine, but specifically announced 3. What is President Boakai looking for? Normally, in audits, what audit people want, audit can tell whether there are being lack of training and awareness. It can find constitutional violation if people are circumventing the process, if there are some policies and procedural violations, if there are irregularities, whether they are regular non-compliance, whether they are fraud, So they're looking for findings and they're looking for issues. So without being too detailed, what is President Boakai looking for, and what does this supposed to tell us? Mr. Tamba, let me start with you. You are the financial guy here, so let's start with you. And hold on, Mr. Tamba. You can unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I think Mr. Boakai is looking at audit as many of us will look at it. It has 2 aspects, in my view. There's a quantitative aspect, which is finance. And there is qualitative aspect, which has to do with agencies such as the Security Service. So the financial aspect, the goal is to make sure that the outcome of the audit will generate reason to deter future malpractices in the system. Future malpractices in the system. For instance, if this was an accounting audit, only accounting audit, we'll be looking at making sure that what we call the GAP, generally acceptable accounting principles, are adhered to in the system. Budgetary appropriations, budgets are scrutinized and the appropriations are made based on estimates or projections by the person who is budgets, so that in the future there will be no loopholes. So, in other words, when you audit, your goal is to deter and also to enhance, to curtail problem in the future. That is for the financial piece. For the qualitative piece, in a place like NSA, the goal will be to make sure that processes and procedures that were held before or that have been enshrined in these agencies are visited to make sure that mistakes that were made in the past will not be made in the future. So this is where Boakai is going. That's why he's calling a massive audit, not only the financial aspect of it, but the qualitative aspect of it. The mind. If you remember, one philosopher once said that 2 plus 2 is not equal to 4 when it comes to human beings. So the qualitative aspect will deal with that, in my view. I think that's why he had it. That's my view.
Thank you, sir. Let me go to Mr. Salib here. The audit here, we're talking about EPS. I mean, central bank, we say yes because he mentioned in this inaugural that President Weah lied about what was left, and so they were going to do an audit. So we could see, but EPS and NSA plus CBA, what do you think that's going to uncover?
No, I don't. Audits don't set. Are not. I don't set up out to uncover. They don't say, "Oh, we want to uncover this." Like Mr. Tamba was saying, there are different kinds of audits and different reasons why you want to audit. It may be an institutional audit. We want to know this institution may be saying they're underfunded. They want more budgetary allotment. So let's understand the work of the EPS, down the EPS, the NSA, for example. There's a thing in Liberia that you don't edit the NSA is intelligence and security matter. So who knows? They want to be able to understand various financial practices, for example. How do they engage in procurement of some kind? There are contract processes. There are accounting generally acceptable accounting practices. Do we have such standards across the government? Is this a single audit, or is this subject to audits that the General Auditing Commission does on a regular basis according to the GSC laws, and things like that? These are questions that we ought to be asking, because if you include agencies that are not subject to audit, usually, particularly the NSA, then I started, maybe this is a single audit. Maybe it could be an institutional audit to just understand the organization, including the finances and procurement and all of that, so that they can improve that system. And so that they can institute or implement corrective measures. That's another way. Or to ensure that the system is set up in a way that we can detect fraud and prevent fraud. So there are all kinds of reasons why. I mean, my suspicion is it's building confidence. It's trying to demonstrate that it's not business as usual. We want people to be held accountable. We want to implement this vision he has for the country, and therefore he's going to set the tone. That's an example that he's starting with there. But there still remain many questions. Like you said, in his State of the Nation address, the first sooner, he made references to audits, and there'll be even in the VOA interview, he might bring international people to ensure that there's confidence in the process. And so is this kind of audit that he's commissioned now, or are these single audits? I don't know. It has to, the people who are responsible for that at GSC, they have to give us more so that we understand exactly what the scope is.
Jimmy, the scope is very important because when President Boakai was coming, they said, well, we're going to audit. And he even talked about bringing in non-Liberians, if I will put it that way, international people, to show that there's no form of witch hunting that is being even perceived.
Right.
So with what has been announced so far, where you think the president is going with this, and what is and Mr. Salif is right, audit is not to uncover. It could be different kinds of reason. But what is the president looking for here, you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes audit is just to assess, to analyze and assess. I agree. But we're talking about audits, and the face of the auditing arm of this administration was John Molu. Where is John Molu? Haven't seen his name mentioned in any of the nominations. So, as far as I'm concerned, we've had a history in Liberia that we audit all the time. GAC, that's what they do. They do yearly, monthly. They do audits all the time. And they've even taken these records of past administration and said, well, these are your own audits. We're going to go ahead with pursuing them because there's some improprieties that we want to pursue. What came out of those? We saw very little. So for me, I see these audits will not happen. And also, even if they do, I do not see them being pursued where we'll be able to bring anybody down for criminal or improprietary misuse of our funds. So, as they say in our parlance, that's vla, just vla.
Mr. Dukley, President Boakai talked about this. Also, today, there's another group to investigate. And is it just talk? If you use Jimmy Wo block?
Well, if if past governments are any examples to look up to, it's only logical to say yes. It's just a bluff. And for disclosure here, the deputy governor of Central Bank for the last government, CDC government, is a younger brother of mine, Dr. Musa Dukley. And I always had a few conversations with him when he came to attend IMF meetings here in the US. And he had a layover here to see us. And I remember he said to me one time, because he actually came from Freetown, from the West African Monetary Agency that is located in Freetown. He was brought in Monrovia to work for Central Bank. All these audits, all these things they are trying to do, they are not new thing that they are trying to do for the first time. Mm-hmm. All of these things are on the books. But because of the way our government have functioned since we started this new era of our so-called democracy, people are, you see, we have now come to, it's
not so-called democracy, it's democracy.
No, and I will tell you why I said this, because we in Liberia have now come to normalize mediocrity as normal. So when somebody is trying to do something proper, because we are so used to seeing mediocre, we think what the person is doing is out of, like, is something so foreign. Audit is pretty common. It's a normal process of any stable functioning government. Now, the objectives might be different, but at the end of the day, you want to account for the dollar you put into any agency. You want to account for the proper functioning of that agency. So, like I said, and that was why I made a disclosure earlier. One time, my brother said to me, look, we can just be sitting, off because the president needs it and he's going X place. And I wasn't too surprised to hear something like that. That has been, when I said the mediocre, that's some of the things that I'm referring to here, that people know the proper procedure to follow. But they know if they follow the proper procedure, in the end, their whatever misdeeds will be uncovered for that reason. Otherwise, I mean, this republic is 170 some years old. Don't tell me they don't know how to do these things the proper way. But because of we normalizing mediocrity, it's so foreign. So really, I don't see anything coming out of this so-called edit that has been called by the new administration. Actually,
thank you, Mr. Nambe. You are a teacher. If I will paraphrase what Dukley has said, it's like a teacher going to give test and announce it.
Yeah,
and make a call press conference. Say, today I'm going to give a history test.
I think the president is the one who's making this in news. Why does he have to announce he's going to audit X, Y, and Z? If it is the done thing, if it is the normal that we expect, it should be
Especially GSC is not a special audit that you have a group. This GSC is routine.
exactly.
Why
It
is he
should make it
announcing
routine.
like it's a
But
big deal?
if I recall, I think the pronouncement said a forensic audit, I believe. So I think there are desires to uncover, inappropriate behavior, to uncover fraud or whatever it is. But yes, this is supposed. I agree with Mr. Duclay. This is supposed to be the expected, the normal. Why are we making it news? And why does he keep talking about it anyway? Just go ahead and do it already. Why does he keep talking about it? If he, I think he should do it, and that's one place I agree. I think it should be done. Every incoming government, if you look at the books, it's this a business inventory. I think it should be, unless there is reason for alarm or whatever it is. But that's what is supposed to happen. That the incoming team should take a look at the books of the outgoing team. But I think this president is making the news. That's why it's in the news, because he continues to announce it that he's going to do it. I don't know where he's going with it, but I think they should do it. And I agree with him too that it should be a forensic audit, because we heard so many things happening. A lot of people believe, especially the agencies such as the NSA, those are the cash cow for most of the presidents. So I think they should take a look at it. But it should be a normal thing. It
Right.
shouldn't be something that would make headlines.
Right.
Dennis, if I may just add one.
Hold on. I know your brother is the central bank. Why are you shining like that?
No, I just
but legend. Before Mr. Tamba
glad to
come
work
in,
in a new government.
Mr. Legend, and I want to use steak. They say you can scare old lady with steak, right?
Right.
Why the
So
president?
yes, my take, Mr.
To scare people here?
Mr. Dennis Jar, this is my take. I will take off where Mr. Duclay left off. Our people, we are so used to mediocrity, so we are comfortable with whatever.
Our governors,
I remember
governor advisor will respond to that, or mediocrity and so-called democracy. He doesn't want to let it slide. But go ahead.
Certainly. So there was this day, President Weah it was still his tenure. He was coming from a function, and a school or a journalist approached him at the Rabat International Airport and asked him, Mr. President, are you going to audit the government that preceded yours? And he went on to say in a synopsis, if the Liberian poor want audit, I will give them audit, whatever, in a synopsis. Here's my thing. I don't know what the reflection or what the school of thought of a government audit is, but it's just, in my opinion, just to check and to assess government financial records of different institutions. There are different institutions, their performances, and measure. You're going to measure their performances. There's so many things in that line that you must assess. But then here is the catch. Our Constitution kind of hinders that process to some extent, and this is the extent to which it does. What it says on the building of our House of Justice, Temple of Justice, it says, let justice be done to all men, not few men, all men. That's why it says on the building of Temple of Justice. So here's how the Constitution come into play. There are some things that needs to be changed. When the 1980 or whatever Constitution was amended, those were the government of what? People who have carried on a coup d'etat, Samuel Doe and his likes. So they put in some laws there that kind of circumvents justice. You cannot say in your entire stay or tenure as a president, anything you did that was wrong and knowingly wrong, when you leave state power, you cannot be questioned for that. I think that is going to be lack of justice to all men when they're going to audit these other people, and you cannot audit the president, who bears a larger portion of misdeeds, in my opinion, like the past government. I feel George Weah should account for some of the things that he did that he could not do when he was a world best player, or when he was a senator, like erecting several mansions for himself in Pinsville. I have a big problem with that. People say he has his money. I tend to differ with that ideology. Let him prove to us that he had his money and he could have done that before, but he opted to do it in his first year as a president. So that law needs to be amended, it needs to be changed so that we can have leverage on the books. We cannot audit certain people and not audit the president or some other people. Let justice be done to all men. It says it, be inscribed on our Temple of Justice building.
Thank you. And Mr. Salih will come in because you got a lot of government thing packed in there. Mr. Tamba, let's go, and then Mr. Salih, and then we'll bring in our callers. Oh, sometimes it doesn't do it. Try to unmute, Mr. Tamba. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Tamba.
Okay. A night ago,
your
voice is bad. Make a suggestion to the government.
It's bad, Mr. Tamba. Yeah, we can hear you. All right. Mr. Salih, you close this segment and then we'll bring in the callers.
This is a very good segment because you see, like everybody has said here, Mr. Duclos especially, audits are routine, audits are quality control, assurance control. They're there to strengthen the government, to strengthen performance. The audits are good for everybody. In fact, if I'm running an agency, I want to be audited. I want to, going in, here's my budget. Here are our procedures, our processes that are, standard operating procedure of the government. And here's what we put in place so that we could be efficient and, to be good stewards of the resources, the people's resources entrusted to us. And so I will invite audits, right? People who run away from audits are people who I guess see audits as witch hunt because they're not used to these kinds of transparent governance processes. That's where the problem is. So I'm with those who say let's normalize it. Let's not make it a special big deal and announce we're going to audit this, we'll audit that. No, they are on the books. We ought to implement the laws that are on our books, and people have to start getting used to that. The moment this becomes the practice, not the exception, you'll begin to see behavior change. You'll see mental model shift. All kinds of good things are possible. So, I mean, when you say so-called democracy, I can understand why you say that, because in our context, in a democracy, liberal democracy, that's why I say liberal democracy, you are looking at these institutional practices as normal practices, public service as a place to be held accountable. So public service comes with scrutiny, and that's what happens in a liberal democracy. People have a voice. People also have responsibilities. Citizenship comes with rights, obligations, and responsibilities. And I think if you qualify, then you're saying, really, we call ourselves a democracy, but we don't conform to the practices, to the norms and standards and ways of doing a liberal democracy. So we pick and choose. Elections, we think elections are the mark of democracy, and we're big on elections. Even our electoral processes, sometimes we don't quite measure up to the way they ought to be done, conducted in a strong democratic society. So I'll leave it at that. Dennis, maybe our callers have a lot to contribute in that.
So let's bring in the callers. Let me start with Mr. Benjamin Jonah. Ben, you're alive. It's been a while.
Hey man, you got a piss fine. You always call me when there is nobody around, but you don't call me when you get stuck. But anyway, we'll talk about it another time. Ooh. Well, so I think the president is being disingenuous here, and he, along with all those who support him, for this man to say that he only got to know about this problem this Sunday, it's not true. These women were in the street during the time of him serving as vice president. There are pictures where he and Ellie sending something to these same women. Is it that he's having amnesia? Is it because he's too old? That's why he cannot remember these things. In fact, it was not just Sunday. It was a Boakai. You heard it a long time ago. And your vice president was just with these people 3 days ago. Come on, let's be serious here. As serious as this thing was, as the vice president had to even promise these people in 24 hours, then how can the president say it was just Sunday that you heard it? Is it being under the rock? Or where? Come on, man. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Mr. Elvis Morris. Mr. Morris, you're live.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. John. And hello to the panelists. I think I actually called just to commend the former defense minister. I think what he did was admirable, and he could have held his ground, but I think he did the right thing for the interests of the country. And we can speculate. I have my own speculations as to why, Boakai accepted the resignation, because the president do not have to accept, resignation letters. He can deny it and actually continue to stay in the post. But if he accepts it, then he himself must have agreed that it was in the best interest of the country. So for me, I think he did the right thing, the right honorable thing to do, and we must commend him for it. But I think overall, I'm not even going to get into the issues of the audits. Like everybody says, it should be routine. But the fact that he's politicizing it by announcing it, as if, because he's trying to give red meat to his base, who was calling for quote-unquote audit of this weird government. We are going to go to jail. All of these guys are going to be in jail. So he's just giving it a little tease for them to think that it's actually going to be an audit that's going to lead to anybody serving in jail time. I really, really doubt that. But we'll see at the end of the day. But thank you for the show.
Evans, before you go, what about the defense minister? That's a soldier, and women scare you like that. You're running away, and you say you're commendable.
No, Mr. That's why I said I don't want to go into some of the details, because it's quite complicated, and there's a division within the army right now. There's really a stark division between certain people in the army, and they feel like that guy was against them, and he's on one side and they're on the other side. And that's why, for stability of the country, Boakai, knowing some of the things that he knows, his security people have advised him of the division that was in the army that was caused by Major General Prince C. Johnson. So it could cause maybe another 1980 situation. Boakai in his wisdom thought otherwise to relieve him of that post, which I think was the right thing to do. And he himself resigned was the best thing for his future. But we'll leave it there, Mr. John. I don't want to take too much of the time.
Thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Flomo Livingstone. The last time Henry Costa, they organized the Save the State, and they boasted this was the biggest protest, and those guys then started cooking within 3 hours, and they left the street. But now you see these women, they've been there 3 days and see the result they got. It's huge. Flomo, what's up?
Yeah, great show. Thanks to the panelists. Look, for me, I'm a little bit, the disappointment part is that the president is too slow in appointing people in the security sector, like the NSA, like the Ministry of Justice. We don't have all those guys in other security sector. I think that's what he should do first to set up. Not set up before you start talking about other places. Look, that was a good thing the president did to avoid conflict, because guess what? If the thing will get worse, he gets on disadvantage youth who already waiting for something to happen so they can go loot people, businesses and stuff. So to avoid all that, the president did the right thing, and I hope they should investigate whosoever, if they are active duty members who encourage their wife to go do that, they should be discharged from the military and remove them, because by right they ain't supposed to do that. I understand if they are, how you call it, deceived military wife. I understand that because they already died. So that's different from active military duty. They shouldn't be doing that. Look, for me, the president should learn from this, and they shouldn't repeat again. It shouldn't happen when the citizens, especially when they bring on that concern. It should be that the government listen to the people and do what best for the country. That's the only thing we can do. That's the only thing the president can do. But I don't know who appointing the president. But I think the president should move faster and do all his appointments so the Senate can confirm most of the guys. And because you don't want to set the prison. For example, Dennis, in case someone come, let me say, justice minister go protest. so that means the president will remove them, or another person come in.
And that's my question to you. Tomorrow, if the teachers and the students get together and say the president, the minister ate our money, and they block all the roads, what will President Boakai do?
Man, that's me. I agree with you there. So I mean, you remove them. So okay, the group of people will say, okay, they don't want the president to, so the president will step down. So my point I'm trying to say is that's a bad prison, because guess what? People only think I know other tradition ANC are happy. It's something that happened. It might happen 2, 3, 10 or 15, 20 years from now. It will happen again. So what will the other people say? So that country, the only way that country will move forward, we'll have to work together and move forward our country. But it can't happen to this government, and you opposite because you want your leader to come back. Guess what? When your leader come back in, the other part opposite will start doing the same thing, so the country will not move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go to my panelists so we can close. And this is, I don't know if, let's say if 3 or 15 more people come up, President Boakai will be left with no minister. They keep firing them because they are. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's conclude. You can respond to the callers and then you give your closing. Let me start with Jimmy.
Yeah. The question you ask, I think if this government takes a lead from these incidents, they will make some people more active. For instance, I believe that Vice President Kuhn should be very more active in the government and handle these matters quickly and efficiently. And I think that's what we're going to see down the road if wisdom prevails. Otherwise, I don't see anybody else emerging as the czar for the things that go on like this. I think it's going to have to be in the hands of Vice President Kuhn, and that's where we will see a major change in this administration. The more they use him, the better it will be.
Mr. Wise.
Yes, sir. A very spirited show, Mr. Dennis Jaya and the rest of the colleagues here. It was a great show. Well, I want to just say in my closing, I would just put it like this. Considering the way this president handled, and I want to address, before I forget, let me address my friend and brother Benjamin Jonah. He said the president just heard about it on Sunday, and that's an assumption that he may have heard of it a long time. That I think you misheard what the president said. He said he met with the wives. So you misheard what he said, for which reason you gave a misrepresentation of Benjamin Jonah, one of our callers who happened to be my good friend. So having said that, let's take this from a different perspective. If President Boakai had gone all firm against those women, had gone on with the program, and things further escalate, and the women, they get somebody get hurt, the riot, police, whatever it is, they are called and people get injured. The eyes and the voices of our Liberian people, the Liberian population, will be a lot more harder, and it will be a lot more critical, and it will critique this government so harshly, and we know how it is. We do not need that right now. We are a country of a fragile peace. We need to keep the peace. We need to maintain the peace. That's one of the reasons why, even though I didn't acknowledge or didn't endorse the presidency, or I acknowledge the fact that he turned over the presidency when you are defeated to President Boakai in a fair and square manner and left this president alone. So we want to continue in this trend. In my closing, I say, long live our common patrimony in Liberia. It is always my hope that we grow as a nation in age. The most important is to continuously grow in wisdom. Then I want to say thank you, and the rest of the panelists. I appreciate all the time being on the show always. This has been a very, very good and spirited show.
You didn't say that prayer when President Weah was there. The prayer you're saying now.
I cannot say it because I didn't ascribe to his presidency, and no, I could not say that for him. I'm glad he left amicably, and we maintaining the peace, and we want to keep it at that.
I think that's the problem, right? When we look at personnel and don't look at the country. But anyway, that's another story. Mr. Dukley.
Yeah, Dennis, all of our discussion today, I want to say thank you to everybody on this panel. I just want to reflect on a quote I heard from PLO Lumumba. He says, part of the problem we have is the people who are in power have absolutely no idea, and the people who have the idea have no power. It's what I see manifesting itself in Liberia.
I disagree.
Okay, yeah, it's just yeah, that's okay. It's just something that I thought I reflected on. So I think it's about time that law and order is seen across our nation as something that is paramount. Our method of resolving our differences has to change, and I think it is incumbent on the new government to start to establish rule of law, because we are still in a fragile state, and we are not prepared for some of the things we are seeing.
So when the fragile state will be over now?
Well, until such time that we see people, instead of getting in the street to express their grievances, you channel your grievances through other means. Until that time, we are still going to be we'll always remain fragile. Because my personal take is, I think everybody in Liberia is still traumatized from what happened, and we have not fully healed.
Thank you. J. Victor Nambi.
Hey, thank you. Great show again. I'm glad I kept Mr. Waller busy again tonight. He keeps screaming my name and trolling me and all that stuff. But listen, look, this government seems to have a penchant for the dramatics. They take every little situation and blow it out of proportion. This problem we are talking about today, the disaffection among the AFL and their descendants. This is a problem, unfortunately, that has been around that previous government before this government dealt with. And they dealt with it in a less dramatic fashion than this government is doing. And this is telling. Even from appointments, their own appointments, to every little thing this government touches is a big wahala. And we really have very high expectations, but they're proving otherwise. And my brother Wise already said that their first 100 days, right now, 20% of their first 100 days have gone to practically nothing. They released a bold a roadmap of, I think, 12 items that they expect to address within the next 79 days or so. And here we are today. This day went completely wasted yesterday or whenever it was. The entire day was spent dealing with a very, very, I won't say, usual ordinary situation. So, we're urging them when we sit here and calling them out, if they think we're opposition and they will not talk to us again, fine, but we will tell it like it is. We expect them to do better, and we think they can. They're being very lazy. They're feeling entitled. They think we should give them a free pass every day. We come on and sing their praises for doing nothing. They haven't done a thing since they came in that is attention worthy. And we are urging them to please turn this shit around. I think the president said today, or somebody said, the state of the nation is something,
in distress.
Exactly. We're sick and tired of hearing these complaints. Give us solutions. That's why we elected you. If this law is too much to carry, let us know. We'll find somebody else. But, we're urging them to please turn this ship around. We're wishing them the best, and we think they're capable. They need to do better, and we think they can. And we will demand that they do better. Until they do so, we will hold their feet to the fire. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if Mr. Tamba is still disconnected. Let me go to Mr. Sirleaf.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, co-panelists. It's good discussion here. I just want to reflect on the way our society culturally treats our women, our mothers, our aunts, our sisters, our daughters in Liberia. You recall during the peacetime, during the wartime, women play a significant role in bringing peace and holding warlords accountable, going to Accra, doing peace marches at Fish Market, and all kinds of things. And so when the women show up and they have grievances, they have complaints. These are the complaints of the children. These are the complaints of the husbands, of the uncles, and and the community members and the elders. And any president, any government will be wise to pay attention to the grievances, the legitimate grievances of
Mr. Sorry, Mr. Saleh, let me interrupt you quickly here and bring our announcement. Tomorrow at 7, we have Abby Tyler's Healthy Living. This comes on every Tuesday at 7. Please join Abby on right here on Focus on Liberia on Abby Tyler's Healthy Living. Please, you don't want to miss it. And I also want to remind all of you that whatever side you stand on, remember this old lady.
What bag out the money for? Yeah. What baby? Money.
Yeah. Let us always remember that. Boakai.
All right, that's what I was talking about.
Longer than that, man. I like that Omar too much.
Omar has spoken. Yes, but again, there's more. I speculate, and purely my own speculation here on my own account. I have no evidence or no insider information to this, but I do believe, again, and this is not any disrespect to the women's ability to coordinate, to organize, and be systematic across the country. However, the way it happened, in the time frame it happened, this is something that this administration should pay attention to. I hope I'm wrong, but there's just so many things that one can do intelligence analysis and security estimates to start to reach some kind of conclusion. So I will close with that in the interest of stability, projecting a stable country, a stable government for investors, for Liberians everywhere around the world, and Liberians at home. I think the event today should not be one that should just be dismissed easily.
Dennis, before I forget, go Sixers. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the night. I want to thank our viewers. Always watch Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. I want to also announce that Focus on Liberia is embarking on having a radio station in Liberia because people tell us, they say the program's so good, we want to hear in Liberia. So, I'm in the process of raising at least 100,000 so that we can have that radio station going from Cape Mount to Cape Palmas. That's our dream and that's our hope. So please join us in that journey. Thank you again for watching. At this time, we're going to close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you believe the resignation of Prince C. Johnson was a good thing or bad thing, whatever you think, we are all Liberians, and that matters most. Have a good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians.